liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
You are tapped in, so let's get right to it. So it comes to be. The black vote has effectively been declared disenfranchised, or blacks have been disenfranchised from the voting process. In terms of what took place last week, a couple of weeks ago in SCOTUS, or the Supreme Court of the United States, where 6 justices of that court determined that the 1965 Voting Rights Act was in its construction. Some aspects of it were unconstitutional, specifically speaking, Section 2. So that section was somewhat gutted. As a result, the GOP in southern states made quick work of the court's decision and began to redraw district lines. That would include those districts that are majority black. Majority of them are black. However, they seem to be left now with no representation. Those districts will be drawn in, cut up, divvied up, divided with other, GOP districts. So that would, in a sense, in its own way, nullify the black vote. Blacks will not have representation as a result of the court's decision. Samuel Alito made the dissenting, or the ascending remarks in regards to this. The thing about that is the accusation, or the alleged accusation, that Samuel Alito used information, data from the Department of Justice that was incorrect and faulty. Now, in spite of that, he used it. And some say, well, he also had known better, being a justice and all, he should have knew that the numbers that the DOJ presented to the court, or what the court used in terms of the DOJ's analysis of the voting situation, were flawed. And yet he used them anyway. So there comes, or that is how it is being said, or Alito and Supreme Court justices are in cahoots with the steal, so to speak. And that still would be the black vote. So that is in effect. That happened last week, and we see the results of that now. Tennessee, Louisiana, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, and other states are following Tennessee's move to redraw voting districts. And even if that involves majority black communities being drawn in, or redistrict as a part of the GOP, or the voting parameters or districts of the GOP, that is in full effect. We see that occurring as I speak. Now, the breaking news I want to bring to you guys is also the fact that there is an attack being made on the First Amendment. Our First Amendment rights are under attack here in the United States by the Trump administration. To bring a little context in terms of what I'm saying, I have a clip. I want to share this clip. It involves, or it regards, the United States counterterrorism strategy for 2026. And what's in it should shock most of us. So brace yourself for this one, because I tell you, once you start down this slope, there's no stopping it, okay? The effects of what took place with SCOTUS, that process is now, it's in full motion. It is going full steam ahead, and there doesn't seem to be any remedy for that just yet. Now, I say that to say what is occurring in terms of the First Amendment being attacked by the Trump administration. If this is allowed to proceed in terms of what they have in store based upon the United States' counterterrorism strategy, then not just individuals who speak against what the administration does in terms of its policies and, those things, laws they try to bring in effect, it won't stop there. It won't just affect the marginalized or minorities. It will affect everyone. So again, I have something to bring to the table that will give us greater context, or a greater idea of what is actually taking place. Before we do, please like, share, follow, and subscribe to Tap, the Art of Political Discourse. As we say here, and we mean this, you guys' support and your viewership, it does a great deal. We appreciate it very much. We see the numbers and subscriptions going up, so we thank you for that. Now, that being said, I want to jump into this thing because, like I said, you're going to have to brace yourselves because I don't think many of you knew this or had even an inkling that this was taking place. But here's the bombshell, people. First, let's deal with the fact that there was something passed. Okay, and it was a counterterrorism bill, a surveillance bill. A lot of us slept on this one, okay, and it was maybe a month ago that this bill was resubmitted or reused. It was cleaned and then resubmitted, but it's called Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, okay? It primarily targets non-U.S. citizens located out of the United States for foreign intelligence gathering. While it is not designed to target Americans, it significantly affects them through the incidental collection of their communications when they interact with foreign targets. Now, the law does not explicitly focus on African Americans, for instance, or Black Americans in its context, but, and I want to not just single out African or Black Americans, but white Americans as well, Asian Americans as well, Hispanics as well, you know. But its application has raised serious civil rights concerns. Advocacy groups and lawmakers, including the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, have highlighted documented instances where the authority was used to conduct wireless searches of Black Lives Matter protesters and other activists. For instance, this is how this thing, it spreads over. Now, how BLA has anything to do with foreign jihadists or terrorist groups, I don't know. I can't speak to that. But here they are using this this surveillance tool on American citizens, okay? And again, that BLA being one example, there are other groups that we're sure will get the attention of this strategy or this spy or surveillance bill that is in full effect. PSL for one, Code Pink is another, Answer Coalition, Democratic Socialists of America. You can go on and on to the break of dawn. Antiva, you know, all these groups will be under surveillance as a result of this bill, Section 702 of the FISA, of FISA. Now, that being said, let me jump into this because it's going to give you better clarity and context than I could. I have the data here before me. One thing is sure about the FISA surveillance bill is that if its effects on American citizens will be felt. There will be, or there are, as I speak, warrantless searches being done on a lot of you individuals' data, your phone calls and things of that nature. All right. There is a mass data collection as well. The NSA, National Security Agency, requires millions of internet communications, millions of internet communications annually, which inevitably includes tens of millions of exchanges involving American citizens. All right. Now, there were reforms added. The RISAA recent updates under the Reforming Intelligence and Securing American Act unauthorized the law until 2026 and introduced some restrictions, though critics argue they do not go far enough to close the backdoor search loophole. Now, in regards to the CBC, that's the Congressional Black Caucus, let me say that they knew what was happening. And in fact, they signed off on it just recently to allow this bill or this surveillance apparatus to continue. Gregory Meeks is one individual, as well as Jim Clyburn and others, Cory Booker, Hakeem Jeffries. All these individuals knew of this and they renewed it. They sent it back to be put back into circulation to be used against the American public. And again, we have to understand how that's going to be used. We have to understand that there's a connection between this bill, this Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and the United States Counter Surveillance Strategy. they work together. All right. And we'll get to that right now. So again, without further ado, let's jump in this. I have a clip for you guys, as I always do, or I'm getting in the habit of doing, because I think it's, it's more helpful. This clip is courtesy of the United States, the White House, Washington, okay, in Washington, D.C. It's the United States counterterrorism strategy for 2026. I hope you guys can see this clearly. All right. Now, what is important about this is section or page 6. Let's go to page 5 first of this strategy. Here we go. It's called the threat. And this is some serious stuff being put down or laid, that's going to be laid at the feet of the American people. This is where your First Amendment rights may be trampled and or violated by the U.S. government. So it says, listen, under the leadership of President Trump, America is again the world's most powerful nation, with the largest economy in history, the most advanced technologies, and the bravest and most skilled war fighters the world has ever seen. Why he would throw that in there, or why that would be in there, it makes you wonder. This newfound strength has been amply demonstrated by historic operations, such as the neutralization of the Iranian nuclear threat under Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Epic Fury, and the arrest and rendition of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro under Operation Absolute Resolve. But the terrorist threat has changed. We now face new categories and combinations of violent actors that make the established ways of doing counterterrorism insufficient or obsolete. We face a multiplicity of deadly threats from terror groups and non-state actors, often secretly supported by governments who wish to undermine us. Okay, so currently we face the three major types. Of terror groups, and here they are here: narco terrorists and transnational gangs. So we're talking about the cartel and MS-13 or something like that at El Salvador, right? Then these last two are the ones we need to focus on: legacy Islamist terrorists, as well as violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists, and listen, anti-fascists. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Okay? Well, we'll just do the bottom one. Violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. Now, most of us know what a fascist is, right? We want to, war against or fight against a police state or government, okay? Now, if you're against that, if you're anti-fascist, then you are on or in the crosshairs or on the microscope. They're looking at you through a lens, okay? You will be subjected to wireless searches, your First Amendment rights being attacked and or stripped or taken from you. This is the strategy for counterterrorism. Now, it goes on to say we can defeat every single one of these, but the threat is significant and pervasive. The borderless America created by the Biden administration was so badly exploited by threat actors that during one 12-month period of the previous administration, more Americans died as a result of illicit drugs flooded into the country by the cartels than all U.S. servicemen killed in combat since 1945. This is an existential threat that President Trump does not tolerate. Okay, now let's cover something right quick, because I think this needs to be addressed. This bottom here: violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. So what they're going to do, and this is where we're thinking here at TAPT. For instance, let's say protesters who or that support Palestine, who are pro-Palestinian, they will be the ones that focus, or this, the strategy will be applied to. We think organizations that also, answer to or are pro-Palestine. Organizations like Answer Coalition, I think, is one. That's one that may be confronted or may have the government's focus on them. They do a lot of work. You have to admit that they're very active in terms of activism and standing up for what's right, especially when the government is wrong. That's for sure. But there are others that orchestrate huge protests that go after Israel and the Trump administration. Okay, these groups and are the people who support them can be, and we say will potentially be labeled as terrorists. This is what we're coming up with, and we don't think that this is some conspiracy theory, or we're not jumping the gun here. We see this. We've spoken about a lot of things here on tap that have occurred. We talked about the vote and how it would be stripped away from Black Americans or African Americans. That is occurring as we speak again. Now we're telling you guys to beware. The First Amendment is under attack in such a way to where they do not or will not tolerate dissent. They want to silence dissent. Okay. So if you're pro-Palestine, if you're anti-Israel in terms of what they're doing in the Middle East and what they've been doing for decades in that region, you know, then you are anti-American, then you are anti-fascist. And that's the problem. This is what we're going to have to focus on in terms of understanding how this attack will come at us or at most people who protest, you know, for, you know, those things that are right, that are, you know, within the scope of human rights, you know, not civil, you know. Donald Trump, though, and Marco Rubio, for that matter, as well as Pete Hegseth, you know, if you listen closely, you know, they always refer to protesters who are, for instance, pro-Palestinian as anti-Israel or pro-Hamas. This is what they do. All right. So this bill, this strategy is for this, and we think it's for this to start. But not only that, there's something bigger in regards to this thing I'm talking about right here, this new U.S. counter strategy program for 2026. That is this. So if you read between the lines, you can understand that they're saying these people are a threat, you know, that the threats are significant and pervasive. They are outlining a prerequisite, a condition for them to attack and identify individuals who are against or who are anti-fascist, who are against or anti-Israel, but who serve or are pro-Palestinian, for instance. This is the thing they're going to do. They're going to label you criminals. They're going to label you terrorists. And for anyone that gets that label, they're going to come just based on, hold on, I have something else for you, but just based on your beliefs and your activism, you will be labeled a criminal, and you will probably more than likely be arrested. This should remind many of us, and I hope I'm giving it to you guys in such a way you understand. The movie Minority Report. So they had this thing and they called it pre-crime, right? In the movie, they were able to identify those who they perceive based upon their activism and what they believe, they would be able to prevent them from committing crimes in the future. It was a preemptive thing. This is what we think is going to take place. We think that is going to actually happen. And it's possible with corporations, technological corporations like Planeteer. They are involved in government surveillance. They are up into their necks in it. They support. They are pro-Israel. They are anti-citizen. You know, most of what they do is geared towards the super rich and those fascists who run governments like the United States. Again, PSL would probably be in the crosshairs. Cold Pink, Answer Coalition, Democratic Socialists of America, and I want to include the Black Panther Party or any party that is aligned to that type of ideology or identity, where they're going to rise up and speak out against the government. But let me show you guys something else. So this guy's name is Ken Klippenstein. Ken Klippenstein. Don't know if any of you know this guy, but I want to share this with you as well. Ken Klippenstein, he made a statement that is kind of, it's scary. It's actually scary. This is the guy. All right. It's called this piece he did, Insane Pre-Crime Strategy Unveiled for Leftist Extremists. Now, if you go back and you call what I just showed you in terms of the counterterrorism strategy for the United States, they are labeling leftists as extremists, or any who is Antiva, anarchists, or any anti-fascist movements. If you're pro-Palestine or just pro-human rights and anti what they might consider to be anti-Israel, you are in trouble. I don't know no other way to put it. But anyway, Ken goes on to explain something right here. Let's start here in this paragraph. Ken says, the language is contained in the White House newly released National Counterterrorism Strategy. It is the first national strategy to be unveiled since 2021, when the Biden administration issued its document. The strategy identifies the left wing anti-fascists and anarchists, and radically pro-transgender ideologies as threats equivalent to jihadi groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, or narco traffickers. Okay, that's crazy for him to say that, but it's also the reality as he understands it in terms of the analysis or work he's done in regards to the US's or the United States counterterrorism strategy. He goes on to say as well, now look, he even has it here as well. I just highlighted that in the last piece. Legacy Islamist terrorists or violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. Okay, but he wants to explain, and this is how they get most of us, is telling you about counterterrorism. And it goes on to say, I quote, counterterrorism itself is a propaganda term sanitizing the actual practice, pre-crime, which aims to build cases against people for what they might do, most ominously based on speech or belief. So that goes to what I was saying. Most of these groups who are pro-Palestine, for instance, who are anti-government in terms of anti-fascist or police state, these groups will be looked at and then considered criminals. Criminals just based upon speech or beliefs. So they're going to compartmentalize individuals based on what they might do, based on what their speech is about, based on what their beliefs are. They will be put into a data bank, and they will be predetermined as criminals. All right. This guy Ken says, I've already written about the Bureau's pre-crime push at length. The strategy doesn't bother hiding it. All right. It promises to identify terror actors and plots before they happen, and to use law enforcement tools to cripple them operationally before they can maim or kill the innocent. And this is their excuse as to why the First Amendment probably needs to be curtailed or taken or stripped away from American citizens. This is the push we see is being put into effect. They're going to predetermine criminals before a crime is ever committed, and they're only going to do that based upon these cases will be built and based upon what they think people might do, as well as based on the speech of individual activists and or their beliefs. I'm telling you, this is not just a slippery slope. This should scare American citizens right now. It should make them want to be up in arms to fight against attacks on the First Amendment right. So they're saying basically you will not be allowed to speak against the government. You will not be allowed to support those who are being oppressed or going through some unjust process executed or presented, by the government. To do so would label you, or you will be labeled as a criminal as a result of that. The strategy also hints at a crackdown on pro-Palestinian groups in a section laying out 5 functional aspects of the current CT environment. beyond the previously named three categories. CT is counterterrorism. Beyond the previously named three categories, it warns of new and deepening alliances between the far left and Islamists, i.e., the Red-Green Alliance, a phrase borrowed from conservative discourse to suggest a conspiratorial alignment between American left and radical Islam, a conspiratorial, alignment between American left and radical Islam. And this is how they're trying to link the two. And this would be enough ammunition for them if they link it together as they see fit, or as they think they need to be enough to arrest people for terrorism or terrorism acts, what they deem to be terrorism acts. These are the counterterrorism measures they will put into place. The Green Red Alliance, the term has been pushed by Israeli think tanks like the Root Group, which defines the term as the nexus between radical progressive groups to Islamist organizations, and picked up by right-wing U.S. news outlets, Fox News, for instance. The framing is designed to recast pro-Palestinian activism as a front for jihadism. Again, man, this should make anyone cringe or give you chills, all right? Because it is they are saying basically, we're going to shut the door on any protest that would support any group that we have an issue with, all right? The people of Palestine are supported by Hamas. The people of Lebanon are supported by Hezbollah, all right? To support either of these people is to support what they deem terrorist organizations. So, and if you're doing that based upon what you're saying and your beliefs, as well as what you may do, what you think you might want to do, that's good enough for them to label you a criminal and arrest you to prevent a crime from occurring. All hypothetical, all right? And they're using that as a means to establish or put into effect this new strategy. It's going into effect, people. I just want to say to most of you, we take a lot of these so-called freedoms for granted. We do. I want to say, and I may get a lot of pushback from this or blowback as a result of what I'm about to say, but blacks, for instance, have done that. We've taken a lot of these privileges or these rights. We've taken advantage of them. We've taken them for granted. A lot of our politicians who are black in the Senate, in Congress, have taken these things for granted as well. Look at them now. They're scrambling, trying to figure out, how did this happen? What could we have done to prevent this from occurring? Most of them didn't pay attention to Donald Trump's first term, didn't pay attention on his second term, when he came in snatching and just doing away with DEI, affirmative action, all those things that actually matter, all those things that show that there is something in play here that's not just going to affect the Black American, because as we all know, a lot of what Trump has taken away affect other races, the whites included, all right? But no one has paid attention. No one gave it any great thought. As a result, look at what's happening. So I'm saying, we here at TAP are saying seriously, very seriously, wake up, people. Wake up. Your First Amendment rights are under attack. Only those with money and power will be able to use that amendment as a right. Everyone else, it will be a privilege. And if you violate the privilege, they will strip it from you and arrest you. You will be labeled a criminal. This will occur. This will happen if we don't hurry up and get it together. All right. Now, that being said, I'm going to let you guys go, but I want to know what you really think about this issue. Do you think the First Amendment is under attack? Do you think that Donald Trump and his administration are pushing to have the First Amendment no longer a right, but a privilege based upon what people say, think, and do? Also, put in the comments whether or not you agree with anything I've said or what TAP is representing. We appreciate you guys' comments. We think that they're very important. They need to be a part of this dialogue. All right. That being said, take care of yourselves and one another. Until next time.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.